Hey guys, welcome back. So in this segment, I'll be teaching you which materials that you can get access to and simplify them the best I can. I always say that the best way to start something is with what you have. So when you get the experience and confidence and when you know the foundations of how you know how to paint, it makes it easier to buy things that are more expensive. So let's see what we have on our table right here. We first have this canvas. This is a prime canvas. This is about a 4 size-ish. You can easily get canvases at your local hardware store. But in case you might not have access to canvas to cut to a small size, you can also buy raw canvases that you can later on prime. As you can see, this canvas isn't primed from the back. The front is primed, however, to prepare for the actual painting process. You could also prime paper that is the weight of 300 GSM. I'll be showing you how to do that later when we get to that segment of the class. So we're moving on to what we have available. Lastly, we have acrylic matte paint. This one specifically is used for interior and exterior walls. I bought this size specifically from a company called Pascon. It's a PDA based paint. This saves a lot in buying canvases, especially when you're just starting out, because what you want is to prime as many small canvases as you can, cut them up into the sizes that make sense for you in your studio space so you can reuse them as much as you can so they do not break the bank, as canvases do tend to be expensive, especially when are stretched. So this is basically the paint that you would paint your walls with, and there are different grades, but this is the cheapest that I have gotten a hold of. However, you do not have to buy this one specifically, as they are also 100% pure acrylic white paint that you can also use. This one is a fabric paint, but it's acrylic based, and you could also use this to prime your canvases as well. Hey guys, welcome back to the class, and in this one I'll be showing you how to prime the canvas. So remember, in the last video I showed you a canvas that is already primed. For this one I'll be showing you how to prepare your own canvases when you do not have the time to buy primed canvases. So for example, this side is primed, behind is a raw canvas. Now what do you do with raw canvas? You're going to prime it. And also, in the first video of the materials, I have forgotten to show you the other most important part of actually painting with acrylic paint, and that would be having a empty cup or something that you could pour water in to use as a base and medium you could use. So mine, for example, is kind of beat up for now, but it doesn't really matter because it's still very much usable. You do not have to get a new one entirely. You could literally take your old lunchbox or something that you aren't using, or a cup that you'd like to use. So we'll keep that aside. So this, we are going to be pouring some water into it, just enough so that we could use as a medium when we are priming our canvas. A little bit more. Now that aside, we are going to be putting this aside, and the next important aspect of this process is taping. That will tape. So the reason why I tape my canvases down specifically is to keep the surface clean around it and to have it solid when I am actually priming the canvas. So makes it easier to focus on priming. Yeah, we have 2 sides completely taped, and we'll be ready to go. Take the side. So And also, as you've seen, this canvas isn't exactly square, and it doesn't matter because priming is about preparing your canvas to be painted on. Because if I had to paint on this raw canvas, not only would the colors seep through the actual seams of the canvas, but it would not hold properly. So that's why priming is very important and helps the paint actually grab onto the canvas so you could blend and do fine details and such. Awesome, we finally have our canvas down. The next step would be to actually prime it now. So what kind of brushes am I using? These are inexpensive brushes. I think they're called synthetic Teflon brushes, I'm not too sure. But these you can get at your art and craft store or your builder's warehouse store or your arts and crafts store. These are very inexpensive. They're used for painting and basically priming things, if anything. So as I mentioned before, you can use acrylic paint, pure acrylic paint, to actually prime a canvas. It's best to use acrylic paint because acrylic is the most flexible paint that you can use to prime canvases. It makes it a lot easier to get things on the actual canvas and makes it a lot easier to blend. But these are a lot more expensive and a lot smaller when you have to prime a whole canvas. Instead, either you use acrylic paint that is a lot bigger and has a lot more to use to actually prime your canvas, or alternatively, you could use, in the beginning I did mention that in-house matte acrylic paint because it has a lot more ratio and lasts a lot longer. So let's do that right now and paint the actual canvas. So I have been using this paint for quite some time to prime some canvases for some prep work. So thankfully there's at least a bit more. It's not completely finished, so it's more than enough to go for quite a couple of canvases. So the whole point of this is to dip the brush onto the canvas, into the actual bucket. Normally I'd pour it onto a different container, but it's fine because as long as I'm not mixing color, it's not going to affect the actual paint. And doesn't matter how you apply the actual paint onto the canvas, the whole point is for you to evenly distribute the actual paint onto the canvas, giving it a flat surface. Now I'll be doing this until I have multiple coats covering the whole canvas surface, and usually I prime my canvases for 2 to 3 coats. Normally 2 should be enough, but if the surface isn't completely covered, it might cause problems later. So I would advise that you would paint your canvases for at least 2 to 3 coats. 2 is normally enough, but 3 is sufficient also to cover in case there might be areas that you've missed. In this step, it's not necessarily about rushing because canvas acrylic paint, thankfully it's not like oil paint. This takes faster to dry. We just want to cover the first layer so we can allow it to dry. And in the next video, when I am done painting my canvas, I would reveal canvas that is ready to paint on so that we can move on to the next step of the painting process. At this point, I'm just painting enough for the first layers so I can come back later and finally add the second layer. So for now, I'll let this dry. So what do you do with your brushes when you're done painting the actual canvas? You dip them back onto the paint tray, fill with water so they don't completely dry out, so they can be wet enough to be used and your brushes do not get damaged.